Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you today about one of the most important exercises that we do here. And sometimes people even say, man, it feels like we do hip extensions all the time. And the reality is we do. We try to do them a lot. And it's because of this. We are a sitting society. All right, so you might sit at work 8 hours a day. You might sit at home when you go home. You might sit to watch TV. You might sit anywhere. All right, but we sit a lot. And what happens is when you sit, you have things going on. So I'm just going to sit on a ball, chair, whatever it is. But when you sit, here's a couple things that happen. Your glutes get weak because they don't need to be active when you sit. All right, so your butt gets weak. Your hamstrings get tight because they're always in a contracted state here. Your hip flexors get tight because they're always in a contracted state here. Most likely, we sit like this because we round out. Sometimes we might start and try to sit like this, but the more we sit, the more we get rounded. All right, so there's a lot of things going on, and we sit all day. Some people sit 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So we have, in a workout world, maybe 30, 45 minutes a day to improve all those things that we lose through sitting. One of the best ways to do that is a hip extension. And you can do hip extensions in a variety of ways, and I'm going to show you those things. A stability ball is probably my favorite. Also, the jungle gyms are another option. You can do them on the floor with a bench. And the other cool thing about it is a hip extension and hip extension variations that come with it are the amount of different ways and different levels that you can be at to do a hip extension. So a general hip extension we do in a warm-up. People in post-rehab or in rehab facilities as far as physical therapy, things like that, do them for bad back issues. And advanced training do them to build power, stability, explosiveness, all those type of things. All right, so regardless of what level you are at in fitness, a hip extension is needed in your program. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is how we progress through those. So the first hip extension we would do in a warm-up, but this would also be more of a level 1, a physical therapy type thing. The key of a hip extension is to get the hips extended, okay? So you're going to lay down here, hands by the side. Try to get this ball out of the way here. And you're just going to push your hips up into the air. Squeeze your butt. Don't lift from your lower back. A lot of people will try to arch their lower back and get the back up there. You're trying to squeeze from your glutes, all right? Because like I said, when we sit all day, our glutes don't have to do anything, so we kind of get weak through our butt, all right? But in a hip extension, we want to squeeze through our glutes here and then lift up nice and high, and that's where you start. You hold it as a kind of a bridge, people would call a bridge. You can go pulses up and down, but you start there in that position. But my hips are up and my hips are extended, okay? This hip joint right here, we don't want to be here. We want to get up as high as we can without pain in the lower back, squeezing your butt. From there, we try to progress people into a marching. So slowly here. All right, but again, the hips stay up high on one leg. And then from there, a single leg variation where you put your knees in alignment, down, back up. Now, that makes it a lot harder. You're going to feel that through your hamstrings, but also through your glutes and your lower back. All right, so hip extension there. That's the body weight version where you can just do on the floor. You'll see that in physical therapy all the time. We use that in warm-ups, in our workouts. If you're beginners, that's a great way to start, okay? From there, you want to elevate your feet. So it doesn't matter if you put your feet on a stability ball, you put your feet on a bench, you put your feet in jungle gyms, whatever. We're just trying to elevate the feet because as the feet are elevated, now the angle changes. You have to get your hips up higher, which is going to make it a little bit harder exercise. Now, if you're going to use a stability ball, which I would recommend everybody has a stability ball at home because there's so many things you can do. You can put your feet flat, lift up nice and high, squeeze your butt. A way to make it a little bit harder, drive the heels into the ball, lift up high. But again, the hips have to be up. We see a lot of people doing them this way, but the hips have to be up high. That's what's going to get hip extension. Squeeze the butt, hamstrings, things like that. If you're trying to pop the ball with your heels, then that's really going to activate what we call a posterior chain, which is calves, hamstrings, butt, lower back, and so on. All right, and again, from there, single leg. All right, you can use your hands for balance to make it harder. Put your hands up like this, and so on. All right, so 2 feet to 1 foot. You could do that same thing with your feet on the bench, feet on the wall, etc. All right, after you get that hip extension, then we want to work on a leg curl. So we're going to roll the ball out. We're going to roll it back in. But again, my hips are staying up. A lot of times people do this, all right? We're not trying to do that. That's good for a leg curl, but we want to get the hips up. Again, the purpose of the hip extension is, just like the name's called, is to extend the hips. So you want to keep the hips up, squeeze your butt. As you roll the ball out, roll it back in, lift the hips up higher. Okay, a final variation is called a hip extension extension. Extend it out a little bit. Legs are now, instead of a 90-degree angle, more of 135 degrees. Push the toes, lift up nice and high. Again, trying to extend the hips as high as you can in that position, all right? That in itself is going to be very challenging. So a little circuit that we do is called triple threats. You can do, start at 5 or 8 or 10 hip extensions, and then the same number of leg curls, and then the same number of hip extensions through the toes. By the way, if you're a runner, that hip extension is a great way to teach propelling off the ground, propelling yourself forward and running. Okay? So again, whether it's stability ball, jungle gym, bench, wall, medicine ball, however you want to do it, that's how you add progressions to the hip extension. One of the most important exercises we do because of the sitting in our culture. All right? A lot of times back pain is because of tight hamstrings. All right? So if we can do things to stretch out the hamstrings, activate the glutes, get this hip extension, the hip flexors. Again, when you lay down, these are extended, okay? Remember, when we sit, they're flexed all the time. A lot of things going on that happens in the hip extension. That's why we do them so often, and that's why you should be progressing through those different moves as you work out as well.